I'm going to be teeing up the conversation, talking a little bit about the emergence of mobile, and then Robert's going to take it over and discuss a case study that we ran recently where we reviewed the differences between mobile and online data quality and definitely pull out some of those advantages related to mobile research. And then I'm going to follow up at the end to talk about some of the things that we're doing in the mobile space to ensure data quality and also some of the things that are on the horizon. Okay, so you're probably asking yourselves, what does a Volvo 245 station wagon have anything to do with mobile research? Any Volvo owners here in the audience? Be proud, be proud. I'm going to take you back a few years, 20 years or so, when I first got my driver's license. And my dad was actually a mechanic for many years at a Volvo dealership, and he loves a Volvo. And so I had saved up for years and years thinking that I was going to buy something really sporty and cute and drive all over town. And he had a different idea altogether. So he encouraged me, we'll call it, to purchase this car with my hard-earned money. And so I was trucking all over Rochester, New York in the Volvo station wagon thinking I was pretty cool. And I had this in my car. He gave me a lot of sage advice, and he said, drive carefully, go slow, but always stay connected to your mom and I. So this was my first real connection with mobile technology, and she is a beauty. She came with a very light and slim battery pack, inclusive of a nice carry case. The buttons were really squishy and rubbery, and it had a very thick kind of rubber-enforced cord just to keep those two units together at all times. And so at the time, I really just thought we were so cutting edge. And we really were. Back then, we were probably considered early tech adopters by market researchers like you. And so we would often get a lot of solicitations. It wasn't uncommon for my mom to say during dinner time as we were spooning meatloaf in our mouth, don't pick up the phone, it's a market research company. I don't want to take any surveys. And the same was true in the mall. We would go to the mall, and sure enough, you would run into this guy. And you know what you do. You can all admit it here, right? We've all been on the other side. We avert our eyes. We don't make eye contact. And we run to the nearest store. And so our family was a very typical household back then. We bought these early products in the market, and we definitely wanted to be reached by market researchers like yourselves, but we did not want to participate. And things got better as we went into the new dawn of online research. And actually, I started my career as we were making that transition from Katie phone work to the online space and trying to make all of that make sense. But it's really about connecting. And we've heard this theme earlier today in other presentations. It's about connecting to the consumer on a new level that we really haven't enjoyed previously. We're getting closer with online. It's definitely more of an intimate relationship between the respondent and the survey instrument online. It's a more private connection. But mobile in itself is really changing things dramatically. And I'll show you that now. So all of these modes are great, but they all do really share a common challenge, and that's about connecting to the consumer. The consumer is a very fragmented person. They are being pulled in a lot of different directions. In fact, I know you guys probably feel the same way, but we've got a lot of things going on in our lives. We've got jobs to do. We've got children to raise. We have households to run. And so as market researchers and people building online panels for a living, it's really challenging to get people to engage with us. But we need a device, a mechanism to really reach them. And that's where mobile comes into play, because we're really connecting on a whole new level. And it's so funny because I was thinking about this last night. And I think someone earlier had said this, that we're always checking our phones. Our phones are with us all the time. And we were going out to dinner last night, and Alan, one of my colleagues, sat next to me, and he goes, "You're socializing." I said, "What?" Everyone in the charter bus was talking, and I was sitting here looking at my phone. And he was right. I wasn't socializing with a group. I was socializing. And that's what mobile devices are doing. They're distracting us because we are so engaged with them. And we need to exploit that as market researchers. And I think that we are, right? Absolutely. Let's just be real. We absolutely can't get enough. And actually, in a recent study that we conducted, at the company at uSamp where we work, just in June, we asked respondents where the phone was when they slept, and a staggering 70% said it was actually in their bedroom, and it's true. The first thing that I do when I wake up in the morning is roll over. It's not say hello to my sleeping husband. It's to actually check my phone. And either that makes me that hard-to-reach consumer that all of you want to talk to, or just a really bad wife, or both, probably. Both probably. Yeah. How quickly do you use your smartphone after waking up? It is staggering to see how quickly we are touching our mobile phones. And again, as market researchers, this is a very compelling proposition and really marks a new paradigm shift in our space that we can create these connections with consumers so quickly and so intimately, literally in the bedroom. The percent of time during the day the phone is within arm's reach, 24% have it 100% of the time, followed by a staggering 45% had it 90% or more. So these are really staggering results that we got in our recent study. And this one, using smartphone within 10 to 15 minutes before sleeping, 65% said yes. So these are really great, strong stats to, I think, reinforce the direction that we're moving in as market researchers. So I'm going to pass it over to Robert, who's going to talk about the quality of mobile responses in a recent case study.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Good morning again. My name is Robert Clancy with uSamp. Happy to be here with you. I guess I should toe the company line and say something interesting about myself, right, before you chastise me later. A good one for me, I guess, is I took 2 years off mid-career to be a bum in Costa Rica. If you ever have the chance to do that, I could not recommend it highly enough, and I will tell you where to go and what beaches to lay on for days on end without doing anything. Fantastic time. I do not weave baskets. I weaved a hat one time, but no basket. But anyway, so we are, of course, after Lisa's great intro, we are going to talk about quality today. And based on some of the questions that have already been voiced this morning, especially during and after Janine's presentation, we got some great data that quantifies online versus mobile response rates and data quality and things like that. So hopefully you'll get some nuggets to take away with you today. So if you'll indulge me, I have 71 slides of data that I'm going to walk through painstakingly slow. That are eye charts. Absolutely not. We are big believers in less is more. So I really have just about 3 or 4 slides to hit the highlights. And then we have this nice little glossy front and back one page that gives you all the details on the case study. So if you like what you see, these are free to you in our special room that we have toward the back. Follow those little footsteps on the floor back there, and you get one of these for free. And you will be able to leave the room. It looks a little ominous when you walk in, but we will let you out the door if you go in there. So I'm going to talk about data quality, and then Lisa's going to talk about panel quality. One of the key facets that we always like to take into consideration is, of course, the user experience. If the users are happy, if they're engaged, if they're enjoying the experience, they're going to be more willing to provide you with the quality data that you're looking for, right? I don't think any of us questions that. That's why we're here. We understand the power of what mobile can do, and we do know that it is a great tool for them and can be a great experience on the smartphone. So did you guys know that mobile data can be captured in the moment? Shocking. Shocking, I know. So that is one of the advantages of mobile, and of course it's convenient. You can get them whenever and wherever you want. So I think these are things that you guys know. We've seen other stats along these lines. These are ones that we have. Smartphone users find mobile surveys very engaging and interesting and fun. So we know that this is a great mode to reach these people. And finally, this is among smartphone users. They do prefer to take surveys on their mobile device versus online. But you'll notice, this is among smartphone users. There's still a good percentage who would prefer to do it online. So while we all know that mobile is emerging, it's certainly not the end-all, be-all yet. As Janine mentioned, it's the evolution, right? And we know it's moving in that direction, but there's still a lot of valid uses for online. And guess what? Respondents, a lot of them are still much more comfortable doing that. So that's just one of the hurdles that we've already talked about today in terms of getting that adoption to mobile, so we can take advantage of those in-the-moment insights. So let me tell you quickly about this case study. I have 3 quick slides just to kind of highlight the differences that we saw in data quality. And again, I hope these are some nuggets for you guys to take away and as good proof that we can. Mobile is the right mode, obviously, to get that in the moment and how the data quality can differ. So very quickly, we wanted to do an identical study, right? The identical survey online versus mobile, right, to see what the differences were. So basically, we were just talking about their grocery shopping experience. So if you were the online respondent, we asked you in hindsight, think about your last grocery shopping experience, and we talked all about it. If you were the mobile respondent, we wanted you to do it in the moment. So you had a little tougher task. You received the initial screener invitation wherever you were, took the screener, agreed to do the survey. Then we asked you sometime in the next week, whenever you're going to do your next regular grocery shopping event, survey, answer some questions when you're in the store, but before you start shopping, so we could capture some things like what pre-shop activities did you do, what are you planning on doing in the store today, all of those types of things. Then we asked them to do their shopping as normal, and then come back to the survey again before they checked out, so we could talk about what's in your cart, what did you do, what do you remember, how was your experience, all of those things. So very scientifically experimental to make sure that we captured everything in the right way. But again, the task was much tougher for mobile, and I think you'll see the response rates were great. Somebody over there had a question earlier for Janine about response rates for online versus mobile. And we have some nice data for you here. So let's talk about that first. So looking at just the initial response to the survey invitation, please take pictures of our screen. I love that. We also have all this in this nice case study, so don't be afraid to go to our room and get it. So we have 9% of the mobile panel responded initially, and 4.4% responded online. So already double the response rate for mobile, right? Why is that? They're more engaged. They like taking surveys on their mobile device. So great information there. The percentage of people who completed the screener, it was just 5 demo questions. They weren't screened out or anything. We just wanted to see what the response rate would be. Very comparable, 86% for mobile, 92% for online. Of those who completed the screener, how many started the main survey? Well, we would hope that 100% of the online people started the survey because they weren't doing anything. If they completed the screener, the very next question started the main survey, right? So if that was 100%, we would look really stupid. Oops. I look really stupid now anyway, so it doesn't matter. Let's try that again. All right. And then of the people, the mobile people who completed the screener, 92% began the survey. Now remember, they could have gotten that survey anywhere. So 92% of the people who agreed to do the study took the time and remembered on their next shopping trip to come back into the survey. So we thought that was a really good response rate. Very little drop-off from however long that interval was. And then of those who began the main survey, almost everybody online. Again, it was a fairly short survey, so it's not like we asked them to do a lot. So we would expect almost everybody to finish it. But for mobile, we got 86% of the people who began the main survey. Again, when they entered the store, then they had to answer questions, shop, come back again. 86% came back and finished the whole survey. So overall, we felt really, really good that, especially for that in-the-moment capture, which we all want, we get really great response rates for mobile. So hopefully those kind of quantify for you the power of response in mobile. 3 very quick differences in the data quality that we saw, again, outlined in our little giveaway that you can have later. The first one is all about recall and confidence in recall, and your confidence in what you recall, basically. So we asked them after shopping, which brands do you remember seeing on display in the store today? And then we followed that up with, how confident are you that you're accurately remembering those brands? Actually much higher for mobile. Should not be a surprise, right? That's what we hope to see, and that's what we actually did see, right? You're right there in the moment. You just shopped. You should be better able to remember what those brands were and be more confident, and that's exactly what the data showed. So happy to see that. The second one is we saw the phenomenon of satisficing, which many of you may have heard that term. I know it's not a real word, but we like to use it. And basically, it's based on kind of cognitive psychology, right? If you're asked to remember a specific event in the past, you're more likely to kind of amalgamize your experiences in that event. So I'm more likely to think about, well, typically when I go grocery shopping, as opposed to the very last time I went, I remember specifically I was going to buy green beans and this and that. It's much harder for you to go through the cognitive effort of thinking about that and isolating that one event. And we saw that in the data here, and much less so with mobile, again, because everything is right there in the moment, right? And then last but not least, in terms of the key takeaways, we did see more social desirability errors in online. So things like the number of unplanned purchases in your basket and the number of pre-shop activities that you did before shopping. So click coupons or went online to find deals. Lots of inflated responses online because they're thinking, ooh, what do they want to know? I should look like a good shopper. So I think I'm going to overstate the number of pre-shop activities that I did. Very common for that to happen, and it certainly played out here. Whereas in the moment, when the online people got to the store and we asked them the same thing, what were your pre-shopping activities? Fewer, first of all, and we believe much more accurate because they'd just gotten there, so they could easily remember or better remember what they just did. So response rate's good. Data quality, again, this is for in the moment. We're not downplaying online in any way, shape, or form, but when you want to capture that in the moment response, online data certainly, mobile data certainly looks more powerful. And then the last area that we wanted to look at was the richness of the data. So specifically to open ends, if we want mobile respondents to provide answers orally or audially in their phone versus typing it in for online, do we get just as rich data as we would if we'd asked them to do it online? And not surprisingly, we found that. There's a typo in here. The top row is not percentages. That's actually an average word count. So apologies for that. But what you can see here, so 19.5 was the average number of words in the audio response, 17.3 for the typed in online. So just as good, if not better, on mobile in the moment. So we felt great about that. And then the percentage of those responses that were 30 words or more, 18.7% for audio, and then 15% for online. So 3 big areas that we wanted to look at. Hoped going in that it would look something like this, and it actually does. So again, just speaking to the power of mobile as the solution for in the moment, there's probably not a better solution. There isn't a better solution. We know that. It's just a matter of now you have some hard data to quantify that. So that's my talk about the survey data. I'm going to go back to Lisa for the last few minutes, and she's going to talk about what we're doing at uSamp for panel quality.
Thank you kindly.
You got it.
Okay, so we're going to jump right in on data quality. And this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I've been building online panels for over 10 years now, and obviously moving into the mobile space these last 2 or so years, building our mobile panels. So a lot of experience dealing with quality as a topic area, using different validation techniques. And we have a lot of learnings and best practices from our past through the different modes that we've engaged in, like online. And really our goal in the mobile space is to apply those learnings and then just really enhance them by leveraging some of the great technology that's afforded to us through the mobile platform. The key, I think, for me anyways, when it comes to data quality and ensuring that we have good panel quality as a result of all that, is that there's really no magic silver bullet. There's no one singular solution that you can put in place that then you sort of say, well, listen, I've got it covered now. I can move on to my next challenge. This is a very dynamic, very evolving issue. We can never, ever get complacent and sort of say we have this solved. I also think it's not really a binary situation where it's yes, no, good, bad. I prefer to look at quality and evaluate quality on a spectrum of different behaviors that are captured longitudinally. And so as a result, at uSamp, we really put in several layers of quality protection on our panels. We think that this is the best approach rather than sort of wait at one point in time to make that decision on the disposition of a given respondent. So here are some of the things that we're doing today in the mobile environment as it relates to quality. We have been doing a lot of source testing and research on research through Robert's team and looking at the different types of sources. We know in our online world that not all sources are created equal, right? We've seen that from time to time. And so it's very important that we vet and evaluate those sources and understand how they're different from one another. So we've developed a quality screener. We run all of our new sources or potential new sources through this screener, and we look at the demographic, the attitudinal, and the behavioral composition of that sample to really evaluate what it looks like from a quality perspective, and then we compare that against established benchmarks that we have both in-house and that we procured externally through some trusted sources of data. This is a very important practice, and I encourage anyone that's building online panels or mobile panels for that matter to really evaluate sources and not, again, grow complacent. Do this on an ongoing basis. Automate it if you can, because just because you have a good sense of what a source looks like doesn't mean that the partner that you're working with might not be making changes on their end that you're not privy to. And if you don't have consistent, reliable sample and incoming recruitment, then you certainly won't have that in the outbound sample frames that you're sending to your studies. So that's just something that's very important to keep in mind, and something, again, that we've learned through our practice in the online space and that we'll be applying to the mobile space as well. Earlier I mentioned this concept of scoring. So it's, again, not this binary yes-no disposition on the sample, but rather a score that is associated with the user that can change over time depending on the behaviors that they put out or that we observe when we evaluate them. So actually having different questions and data checks in-house throughout the registration process, assigning a score and watching that score change over time, and developing a threshold that feels comfortable for you as a company in terms of, is a person suspicious? Are they demonstrating overzealous behaviors that could have a negative impact on your data? And doing ongoing research on research to evaluate how that's changing over time. And the important thing is, no matter how much I'd love to grow my team and get it bigger and bigger and bigger, there's only so many humans that can look at data all day long on a sort of a microscopic level. We have to rely on technology to do the heavy lifting for us. That is definitely part of our mantra at uSamp. And so we really rely heavily on algorithmic analysis when we're evaluating respondent behaviors and new panels coming on board. And so we work very closely with our analytics team to develop these algorithms and build these models out that get smarter as they look at more behaviors that the respondents are demonstrating and have a larger data set to work with. And so, again, I would encourage that approach, and that really, I think, feeds into the respondent scoring concept as well. The other piece with mobile, I think that's important, is if you're doing an in-app mobile panel build, every panel is very different, and every app is very different. So it's very important, I think, to onboard respondents properly, show them what they need to do, give them examples, have sort of an onboarding session that shows them the different areas of the app and how to participate. Now, again, we certainly don't want to condition them by any stretch of the imagination. We want them to feel comfortable and engaged in the app so they continue to come back. We're running short on time here, so I'm going to keep trucking along. The point here is that it is a wide spectrum, and we really want to be careful that we don't just sort of do it at registration and then walk away and hope for the best. It really is an ongoing story that we look at over the lifetime of the respondent, from the time they join to the time that they either attrit from the panel naturally, or they do a formal unsubscribe, or whatever it may be. We need to be following them along the whole process. And so we've implemented these various details that help us to manage online quality as well as mobile panel quality. The user modeling, as well as red herrings or trap questions that we present in front of respondents to test their level of engagement. Because what we've seen, both in the online and mobile space, is that a person can look very legitimate, very well-behaved, if you will, in registration, and then they become unengaged, and they lose interest, or they demonstrate very overzealous behaviors. And so what you may see at registration doesn't mean it's a guarantee for ongoing behavior, and so it's very important to continually check and run those consistency checks. And of course, with mobile, we have all of this rich, robust technology that really was never available to us before. And so we're leveraging the ability to get geospecific and to track lat long among users and look at that data to, triangulate and make sense of it all. Geofencing as well, ensuring that a respondent who walks through an invisible radius that we may put around a given location, triggering a survey opportunity once they pass through that fence or when they exit that fence. That level of validation, I think, really is compelling for me as a panel manager, because in the online space, I just never really had that level of accuracy. And then, of course, rich media capture. This is also a fun way to engage with respondents. They love to take pictures and upload them. It makes them really part of the survey experience, and I do think it helps to reduce attrition in mobile panel. But it's also a great way to validate, right? Are they providing you with good photo responses? Are they taking high-quality photos? Those are all things to be asking yourselves and use as a means to to evaluate. So this is just a quick example of the user modeling that I was talking about. Here's a CEO. He suffers from alopecia. He has a super rare condition. He lives in New York. Oh, wait, he lives in San Francisco. He has a show dog. He has a cherry red Lincoln, and the show dog actually won the Best in Show at Westminster. This is an example of how, in isolation, you could have just a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and he looks legitimate, and he looks like a good survey respondent. But as you start to track them longitudinally and leverage this algorithmic analysis, you start to see a different story. And so it's very important, again, going back to my original theme, that we look at the lifetime of a respondent in any panel, whether it's online or mobile, to make that assessment on whether they're a legitimate panelist or someone that's looking to thwart your quality efforts. And we also refer to this as the black swan. So these are very rare events, things that are very low incidence. And in isolation, they make sense, right? They're that consumer that you've been vying to reach all this time. But if you start to see a pattern of very low incidence behaviors that they're qualifying for, then you may look a little bit more suspicious. So that's what our algorithm does. So on the horizon, we are working on a number of different initiatives. In fact, we've partnered with a very large CPG company who has been an amazing partner with us, and we're very excited about the things that we're going to be doing together with them. Image recognition, I think, is something that's going to be really hot moving forward. So it's this idea of being able to have the respondent take a picture of themselves when they join the panel, and using technology that we'll develop, ask them later on to take more pictures. So let's say Robert is my guinea pig panelist. He takes a picture upon registration. 3 months later, I'm going to ask him again to take another photo, and I'm going to compare that to my benchmark to see if Robert still fits the profile and still is the person I think he says he is. Now, he could grow a goatee, he could get a haircut, he could go back to his Costa Rican roots and go bum-like, but the technology will be smart enough to discern those nuances, those different changes, and be able to authenticate that user. And I just think that's a very exciting concept. One of the things that was spoken about earlier is this kind of frustration that we're dealing with from an operational standpoint, and I'm an ops person through and through. This idea of being able to collect all this great, rich media, but then having to suss through all of these different photos, it can be very, very frustrating. And so you've got this qualitative richness to the data that's being provided, but from a quantifiable standpoint, it's pretty challenging. So automating that photo coding and finding ways to reduce the time it takes to synthesize those photos and deliver those insights to the client, I think is going to be a very important piece for our future. Dial testing is sort of a mechanism that we've created online on our online platform that we're going to be building out on our mobile platform, where we actually can measure in real time and dynamically a user's perception of a logo or a video over a different product. And we're actually going to use that to measure their ability to follow instructions and to be compliant and to be cooperative. So we're really excited about that one as well. And then audio transcription, that kind of feeds into what we're seeing with automated photo coding, this idea of being able to provide an audio response. And we saw in the case study that Robert presented that they're actually providing very rich responses, and being able to quantify those and synthesize that data quickly is going to be very important for us. And again, behavioral monitoring. It's kind of a big, lofty terminology similar to big data, but there's this idea of really being able to marry all the different data points together. So not just what's self-reported in a mobile survey, but what are they doing socially? What transactional data do we have access to that we can marry together and really present a more holistic picture? That's going to help us get closer to consumers, closer to in-the-moment insights on what's driving their decisions, but also, I think, create a more engaging experience, because theoretically we'll be able to present a more engaging survey opportunity for them because we know them that much better. So that wraps it up. Sorry to kind of speed it along at the end. I was tight on time, so forgive me. But definitely, if we have time for a couple of questions. Okay.
There is one question. Oh, on the app. And there's a person to answer it, too. What's the question on the app? Oh.
I knew we were going to get that question. Do you want to take it, or shall I? Okay, so, I think that's a great question. And obviously, the penetration of smartphone ownership is only increasing, but it's not at 100%, right? And so that's definitely, I think, a challenge for us as researchers, is to understand, what that population looks like and try to present back to the general population. What we are seeing a lot of our clients doing is a mixed mode approach. I think you might have mentioned that earlier, this idea of conducting both online and mobile as a sort of marriage of sorts, if there are concerns about representation. But certainly in the moment, in-store capture moments are so compelling, and so I don't think that there's as much concern per se. But it is an issue that we're facing, I think, across the board as an industry, and something that will hopefully alleviate over time as we get the penetration rates increasing for smartphone ownership. But there's certainly some regions and areas of the world where there are more smartphones than other modes of accessibility, and we talked about that earlier today, so that's certainly something to keep in mind.
I'm curious about behavioral monitoring, and do they opt into it? How do you get them? It seems like it might be a little bit of a privacy
Sure, that's a great question. We work really closely with legal counsel who specializes in mobile to make sure that our privacy policy, our terms of use, and the opt-in is very clear. It's very important, I think, especially when you're working with an app and trying to establish that trust. It's so hard as a panel manager to get folks to join in and download that app. The last thing you want them to do is become disenfranchised and delete it, right? So the key, I think, is to have a series of best practices, one being open transparency about what you're doing, how you're using that data, how it's being managed, who you're sharing it with, how it's even being destroyed, and when it's being destroyed. So we're very, very clear and transparent on what we're doing with that data. And I think that the other piece is just because we do that, say, in the U.S., that doesn't necessarily mean we can do that in Europe. And so, if you are building an app or working with folks that have an app and doing mobile research, it's important to understand that laws and regulations change from country to country. And also there's cultural sensitivities from country to country that should be considered. So a bit more nebulous, a bit softer, but still very important for the user experience. And so it's very important to work with a legal counsel that's local to those areas.
You know what? We're going to have to move on, but these guys are in the room if you follow the footprints. So if you have questions for them, I'm sure they will be happy to answer them. Is Debbie Solomon? She's miking up as well. Okay.
Great. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.